You know the name Nikola Tesla. I mean, it's on those super fast electric cars. It's in all the science books. But the man, the real man behind the name, was so much more than just an inventor. He was a visionary, maybe a little bit of a magician, who saw the future in flashes of lightning. He dreamed of a world with free, wireless energy for everyone, a world connected in ways we're only just now starting to get our heads around. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the real and honestly the extraordinary story of the man who tried to give power to the world.
Let's just start with a kind of a mind-bending question. What if, more than a century ago, we could have had free, wireless energy? Seriously, just picture it. Cities glowing, no power lines, homes running on energy pulled right out of the air, information zipping around the globe with no cables needed. And no, this wasn't some sci-fi fantasy. This was the absolutely audacious, world-changing dream of Nikola Tesla. And if you can understand this one massive idea, you're on your way to understanding the man himself.
Okay, just look at this photograph. I mean, wow, this is not some Hollywood special effect. That is Nikola Tesla in 1899, just chilling in his laboratory in Colorado Springs while his machine unleashes millions of volts of electricity. Those lightning bolts are 23 feet long, and he's just sitting there, calmly reading a book in the middle of this electrical hurricane that he created. This one image, it says it all, right? This was a man who didn't just study the forces of the universe, he played with them. He wanted to tame lightning itself, and for a while there, he actually did.
All right, so to really get the full picture of this incredible guy, we're going to walk through 5 acts of his life. First, we'll look at where his incredible mind even came from. Then, we'll dive into the epic showdown known as the War of the Currents. After that, we'll explore his dream of a wireless world, and then we'll dig into the mystery surrounding his death and his missing files. And finally, we'll see how his legacy is more alive today than ever before.
So, Act 1, A Mind of Light. Our story kicks off way back in 1856, in a tiny village in what is now Croatia. Now, legend has it that he was born right at midnight during a crazy lightning storm. The midwife saw it as a terrible omen, saying, "This boy will be a child of darkness." But his mother supposedly replied, "No, he will be a child of light." Talk about a prophecy, right? A boy was born who wouldn't just see the world differently, he was going to build a new one inside his own head. What Tesla called an affliction, well, that was actually his superpower. From the time he was a kid, he would see these blinding flashes of light, and right after, these incredibly vivid images would just appear in his mind. He could literally project inventions in front of his eyes, walk around them, take them apart, and even test them. It was like having a full-blown virtual reality simulator built right into his brain. It let him design, build, and test these incredibly complex machines entirely in his head with perfect clarity before he ever even picked up a tool.
So you can see his path was just different. His mom was actually an inventor herself, making little tools for the farm, and he always said she was his inspiration. Then, as a teenager, he sees the raw power of Niagara Falls and has this vision of a giant wheel being turned by the water, a power plant he himself would actually build years later. Then, at 26, he's walking through a park reciting poetry of all things, and bam, the entire design for the alternating current motor, the engine that pretty much runs our entire modern world, just appears in his mind, fully formed. So in 1884, he gets on a boat to America with basically 4 cents in his pocket and a letter of introduction to the one man he admired most, Thomas Edison.
And this is where things get really interesting. Act 2, The War of the Currents. Tesla walks into Edison's lab in Manhattan, this bustling hub of invention, thinking he's about to team up with his hero. But this meeting of the minds quickly turns into a clash of titans. It was the visionary dreamer versus the hard-nosed businessman. Tesla was after the most perfect, elegant solution. Edison was protecting his billion-dollar empire. The stage was set for an epic battle.
This rivalry became one of the most intense fights in the history of science, a story just full of genius and betrayal. We're diving right into the heart of it, and if you're finding this explainer valuable, subscribe for more. There's a lot more coming.
Okay, so the whole fight boiled down to this: DC versus AC. Edison had bet everything on direct current, or DC. Think of it like a one-way street. It worked, sure, but it was super inefficient. The power faded out really fast over distance, meaning you needed a power station on almost every city block. It was never going to power the whole country. Tesla's alternating current, or AC, was the game changer. By having the current switch direction back and forth, you could ramp up the voltage to send it hundreds of miles with almost no power loss, and then step it back down to be safe for your house. It was way more elegant and way more efficient.
Edison wasn't just skeptical. He saw AC as a direct threat to his whole business model.
The breaking point came when Edison offered Tesla $55,000, which is like well over $1 million today, to fix his inefficient DC generators. Tesla, being Tesla, worked day and night and came up with a brilliant fix. But when he went to collect his payment, Edison just laughed in his face and said the offer was just an American joke. For Tesla, that wasn't just business. It was a huge betrayal, and it ended their relationship for good.
So after quitting, Tesla teams up with George Westinghouse, another brilliant inventor. And Edison, he declared war. He launched this really vicious smear campaign to convince everyone that AC was deadly. He held these public demonstrations where he'd electrocute stray animals, dogs, cats, even an elephant, just to scare people. And then, in a really dark move, he secretly helped develop the electric chair, making absolutely sure it used his rival's alternating current just so he could forever link the word electrocution with Westinghouse in the public's mind.
But in the end, you just can't fight better technology. The real tipping point was the Chicago World's Fair in 1893. Westinghouse and Tesla beat Edison for the contract to light the whole thing, and when the switch was flipped, 100,000 light bulbs lit up this white city. I mean, it was a spectacle. 27 million people saw the power of AC. Then, just 2 years later, Tesla's childhood dream came true. The new power plant at Niagara Falls, using his patents, started sending electricity to light up Buffalo 26 miles away. The dreamer had won.
So, Act 3, a world without wires. You'd think after winning the War of the Currents, Tesla might take a victory lap, right? Nope. For him, that was just step one. Now that the world was running on his AC system, he set his sights on something even bigger, a world with no wires, where not just information, but energy itself could be broadcast to anyone, anywhere on Earth.
And to get where he was going, you have to realize his mind was just a fire hose of new ideas. He invents the Tesla coil, which is basically the heart of radio technology. He actually held the key patents for radio years before Marconi gets the credit. He demonstrated neon lights, and get this, in 1898, he drove a little boat around a pond at Madison Square Garden using a remote control. He basically invented drones and robotics right there. Each of these inventions was a piece of a much, much bigger puzzle.
And all of these ideas, they were all leading to this, his masterpiece, the magnificent Wardenclyffe Tower on Long Island. It was funded by the famous banker J.P. Morgan, and this massive 187-foot tower, it was way more than just a radio antenna. It was meant to be the first station in a world wireless system that would change everything.
So, how is this thing supposed to work? Well, it's pretty wild. Think of the Earth like a giant bell. If you hit it with just the right frequency, the whole planet will vibrate. Tesla believed he could do the same thing with electricity. The tower was designed to pump electrical energy into the ground and the upper atmosphere, making the entire planet resonate. Then you could just stick an antenna in the ground anywhere on Earth and draw that energy out. He wasn't just sending signals, he was trying to turn the planet into a giant electrical outlet. And here was the problem. Tesla wanted to give this power away, for free. His backer, J.P. Morgan, thought he was just building a new way to send telegrams. When he found out Tesla intended for the energy to be free, so you couldn't put a meter on it and charge for it, he pulled the funding. Morgan famously asked, "Where do we put the meter?" With no answer to that question, Tesla's beautiful dream died. The tower was never finished.
Act 4, the fall and the mystery. The failure of Wardenclyffe, it was a huge blow. And this really kicks off the last and kind of tragic chapter of Tesla's life. He faded from the public eye. He kept inventing, sure, but he got more and more isolated, which led to a quiet death right in the middle of World War II. A death that kicked off a mystery that people are still talking about today.
So in 1943, on the 33rd floor of the New Yorker Hotel, an 86-year-old Nikola Tesla was found dead. He died alone and pretty much broke, a shadow of the scientific celebrity he once was. He spent his last years talking to pigeons in Bryant Park, especially one white pigeon that he said he loved like a person. But his death, it wasn't the end of the story. In a lot of ways, it was just the beginning of a whole new chapter.
Here's where it gets weird. Within hours of his body being discovered, agents from the U.S. government, along with the FBI, stormed his hotel room and seized everything, all his papers, his research, his notes. Why? Well, it was the middle of World War II, and Tesla had been talking about inventing a death ray, a particle beam weapon he said could vaporize airplanes from 200 miles away. An MIT engineer named Dr. John G. Trump, yes, the uncle of the former president, was brought in to look at all the research. His official report? He said it was all just speculative and basically junk science.
Okay, but get this. There's a major inconsistency in the official story. The FBI's own records say they seized about 80 trunks of Tesla's stuff. But years later, when the materials were finally sent to a museum in Belgrade, only 60 trunks showed up. So what happened to the other 20 trunks? That one question has fueled decades of conspiracy theories. Did the government secretly keep his most dangerous research for itself?
So you've got these two totally conflicting stories going on. On one hand, the official report from Dr. Trump says it was all basically science fiction. But on the other hand, we now know from declassified documents that really high-level officials, including the vice president, were seriously discussing his death ray. It sure looks like one part of the government was publicly dismissing his work, while another part was taking it very, very seriously. The truth about what was in those files? It's probably still locked away somewhere.
And that brings us to our final act, the rebirth. After dying in obscurity and becoming this figure of mystery, Tesla's legacy has come roaring back to life. After decades of being overshadowed by guys like Edison, his name is once again synonymous with genius and the future.
And his influence isn't just in the history books, it's literally shaping our world right now. You've got giant tech companies like Samsung, Boeing, and Sony still citing his original patents from over 100 years ago in their new inventions. His ideas on wireless power are the foundation for the wireless charging we're all trying to perfect today. The man wasn't just ahead of his time. In a lot of ways, we're still trying to catch up to him. And, he even got some justice, even if it was way too late. For years, Guglielmo Marconi got all the credit and the Nobel Prize as the father of radio. But in 1943, just a few months after Tesla died, the U.S. Supreme Court basically set the record straight. They invalidated Marconi's patents and confirmed that Nikola Tesla had patented the core principles of radio first. He was officially recognized as the true inventor of one of the most important technologies ever.
When you really step back and look at it, it's pretty staggering. We are all living in the world that Tesla imagined. The AC power coming out of your wall socket, the Wi-Fi connecting your phone, the remote control for your TV, the motor in an electric car, all of it, every single bit of it, traces its roots back to his incredible mind. The dream he had at Wardenclyffe is still alive every time you place your phone on a wireless charger.
And that leaves us with one last really big question. Tesla's whole life was about innovating for the good of humanity. His greatest dream was to give free energy to everyone. And that dream was crushed by a system that needed to know how to profit from it. So his story forces us to ask a tough question. How do we balance these revolutionary ideas that could help everyone against the economic system that decides which ideas get funded? It's the conflict that defined Tesla's life, and it's a question that's more important today than ever before.
By the way, if you're finding this story interesting, definitely subscribe to the channel. We do a lot more of these deep dives into the people and ideas that shaped our world, and there's a lot more coming your way.